fans, welcome to another edition of the Attacker Down League. We've got guest analysts in. I'm Jester TG of the Hurt Locker.
With the Kislev Circus.
And today we're going to be analyzing the game between the Bearded Bruisers of Complacent Badger and Left for Dead of Coach Gympy, who are your usual commentators.
Teams here have rosters of 12 people, one standing on the side for each. Gympy's got 2 leveled ghouls with block added, while Complacent Badger has a single mighty blow. And I'm thinking that's going to play a big role in trying to turn the tide in his favor.
I think those ghouls with block are really going to be out there helping out.
A big weakness of that Undead team, though, the Armor 7, no regen, you can see he's already lining up Mighty Blow up against that block on the left side there.
Yeah, he's going to be using that to his advantage. He's trying to take those block players out real quick so he can keep the rest of the regen off the field.
For everyone watching right now, you'll see our setup here is a bit more crude than what Complacent Badger usually has set up. MasterMeus, the disembodied voice here, is the one controlling the mouse, and there's going to be about a 15-second lag between what I'm seeing and then what you guys see, so I'll probably end up speaking ahead of what you guys see.
Which should be alright, because it gives us a little bit of what we're going to be looking for and what we're going to be looking at as we go into it.
To start is a good thing for the Dwarves there. You'll see he started with that Dwarven Pass as well. Something that he's known for, that 8-sided scatter, always moving in the right direction for him. Many blocks as he can, already getting some positive results out of it too. An interesting thing to consider here, the skeletons with thick skull, after an 8, they stay on the field, and it gives Complacent Badger another attempt to get that injury that he's actually looking for.
Unfortunately, we only got a couple of pens there on the first run, but looks like after going through all those blocks and we come back up to Gympy.
Will come into play already. Gympy having that discipline to not burn his rerolls. He's figuring it's going to be a tough fight later. He's going to need them, and he may lose after that turnover. The slow dwarves just not going to be able to take advantage of it.
No, but slow and steady wins the race, and we know Complacent Badger likes to play hard and dirty, and he likes to play with a lot of really good strategy.
And his goal is just going to be to throw as many blocks as possible. You'll see he's pushing people up against the sidelines. He's said it in the previous games. His thing is player advantage. He would like to see injuries. They're experience for him, but player advantage is his main priority. So getting that crowd surf is going to be on his agenda.
Yeah, once you get as many players off the field, you've got nothing stopping your slow walking dwarf from walking all the way to the end zone.
Interesting that he hadn't thrown any 2-die uphills. That's 2 turns now. He's not thrown a 2-die on the mummies with Gympy's choice. Given that the push is a neutral, and then he's got 3 sides on that dice that are to his benefit, it's essentially a 2+ that he has to succeed the same roll. And it could end up having some catastrophic effects if he puts those mummies down. You never know.
I think what he's looking for is to just keep the mummies tangled up, because they are big and they are mean with that big strength 5. And if he keeps them tangled up, that AG1 makes it real hard to dodge out.
True. They having the mighty blow, they are a threat to the dwarves. Fairly used to having his armor 9, armor 8. Ball carrier here actually jumping into the fray. Um, that little bit of movement, using the blitz, putting himself at a disadvantage a little bit. That the ball carrier is now at a threat. Should be able to keep that under control. He really depends on having block. Taking a single die with block, you're betting on the safe result there.
All you really need to do is make sure you got that ghoul out of bounds so you keep that player advantage up.
And so you'll see Gympy had disengaged a dwarf to bring a ghoul for the movement there on the left side, and it caused that dwarf to help on the right side, get the 2 die for a push, lock off the sideline there, another 2 die to get him out of bounds, immediate player advantage.
There was that 2 die uphill you were talking about, and boom, it does pay off with the pen.
Exactly what I was mentioning. So he probably thought about it the first 2 times, wasn't sure where he was sitting with it, and finally said, you know what? It's 2 2+. I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot, and he got the result he needed. Regen not triggering. So that mummy being out of the game for the whole match, massive. Massive.
Yeah, losing a strength 5 player like that really does hurt, especially up against these real tough dwarves.
Tackle come into play, burning a reroll, and because it used that reroll that he would have had free, there was no reroll available for the pickup. These dwarves are just punishing the undead right now. Now you've got a little bit of experience with the ghouls and the undead a bit using necromantic. Dependent ghouls.
When I played the necromantic, I made a lot of really bad mistakes with 1 dies that I was wasting all my rerolls on, and I wasn't very particular about using them. Later on in that same first season that we did, I learned that I need to save my rerolls when I'm using my werewolves as my ball carriers, because boy are they important.
You did switch away from the ghouls and kind of picked up those werewolves with the, I think, movement 8, just incredibly fast. So here on the undead team, no werewolves. These ghouls are not only his running backs, but his fastest players. So when it comes to desperate blitzes and safeties and things like that, they're kind of the ones he depends on.
And they're fast, and by no means are they too weak to handle anything either, especially if you have a couple of them on the field like Gympy always does.
4 on his roster. Granted, 1 with block got pushed out, so that hurts quite a bit.
When I played my necromantic team, I would use my ghouls as my my ball insurance is what I would call them, because they had their sure hands to pick up the ball after I gave them that after leveling. The only reason I use my werewolves as my running backs is because both of them leveled up and rolled that extra movement allowance.
No way. That's nice. So here again, I don't think it was Snake Eyes. I think it was a 1 and a 2. I can't really see it there. But trying to dodge away for that ball. Didn't burn a team reroll, but just dropping onto that ball there, not being able to pick it up. And again, he's kind of on his back foot.
The good thing about where he landed on the ball and the scatter for it was it did land in a more advantageous position for him with 2 bodies on the ball.
Till he got a body dropped on it, and all of a sudden it's back in a dwarf advantage.
I didn't say bad things can't happen, but it is now in a dwarf advantage. The big thing we're seeing here is that player advantage of the whole team starting with block and tackle, like, is just amazing for the dwarves. Like, they start so strong with that tackle ability, especially to keep those ghouls down.
Yes. Early dodge is a huge benefit. So the early tackle to cancel it out, it's just as large a benefit. This poor white over here trying to blitz himself out of the sideline, resulting in a block. I can almost guarantee he's going out of bounds on this next hit.
Yeah, there's no way he's going to let him stay in bounds, especially when he starts with block. Those whites are super strong. It's actually recommended in a few different strategy pages to use your whites as ball carriers and receivers. What do you think of that?
Block makes a good just because they are less likely to drop the ball. They are agility 3, and I believe they're movement 6. Yeah, movement 6. So they're pretty standard stats with the addition of block. There's no reason not to use them as a ball handler.
Well, that white, just like you predicted, straight out of bounds.
So now you'll see he had one out of bounds in the beginning roster, and we're looking at 2 pushed out, 2 KO, and an injury. This player advantage is spiraling.
That's really the problem with facing against dwarves. You think you've got the advantage on speed to run away, but if they take you out of the game, your speed doesn't mean anything.
You saw the I believe it was 88 blocks, something like 19 or 20 penetrations, and nothing but stuns. Definitely not what's happening here. He's actually getting the KOs and the crucial injury on that mummy. Um, Recovery for the undead, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know when I played against Badgers dwarves, I did feel a lot of blocked dice, but I didn't let myself get crowd surfed too much. I think I only had a couple.
I remember seeing any. This is a little bit of a newer strategy that I've seen from him. I don't think he tried to surf any of my players either, because he was wanting to put them down, get the experience.
It seems like with this team though, he wants to make sure he gets some of those key players out of the game, and like you said earlier, that mummy is going to be a big factor later when it's not available.
Already is. These middle dwarves, they've only got the one mummy distracting them. They just keep putting them down, and they can branch out, give assists, surround. He's got a little partial cage on some of them. And interestingly, I just saw a dwarf try to hand off for a little bit of a breakaway run. Turn 7, he wasn't going to make it without that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. He needed the handoff and still 3 more go for it. So it looks like this drive is going to result in a 0-0 tie still. But the next half, Dwarves have a huge advantage.
Yeah, especially on the startup on that front line, they're only going to have that one mummy to deal with off the start. Depending on how those KO rolls come out after turn 8, we're going to have to see on the kickoff how that goes. But I do believe it is Gimpy's ball.
And honestly, with the player disadvantage that Gympy has, the ball being on his side is what the Dwarves want. They don't want to have to pick up the ball and run it downfield. They're just going to swarm. They're going to hold that front line and push in as safely while still quickly as their legs will allow to get to that ball that's already.
It looks like we're taking advantage of a team 8 here, turn 8 here for the Dwarves, where he's throwing as many block dice as he can before the end of the half to see if he can't get more of those players out.
So he's not going to be hitting that white. He's setting up his players so that 1, he can't dodge out, and 2, if he decides to throw a punch, it's going to be at a disadvantage. There's no hit against that white. He's making sure that there's no response against him as well.
That was a really good leave off for the end of a turn 8, especially with making all those 2 dies into 1 dies.
Happened. Ridiculous amount of dice being thrown for dodges, and was honestly funny to watch.
Probably the best use of dodging I've seen. The only problem, it didn't result in a completed touchdown.
I'm surprised he even got to the ball in the first place. You were looking at 5 and possibly 6 only dodges going through 2 tackle zones against the sideline, picking up the ball in a tackle zone.
That had to be a 4
Out.
plus pickup, right?
The pickup would have been, yes, a 4 plus. Dodging out into another 4 plus, and then going for the long bomb, which I believe is a -2, and a tackle zone's a -3 for throwing. So, only pass that he was hoping for. If it had gone out, touchdown. Can't give him too much flack for trying it, but there was no way it was going to happen.
No, it was a turn 8 desperation play to try and get that score.
That's for sure.
It's not like it could have gone really badly either. I mean, it was his turn 8, no turn 8 left for the Dwarves. Might as well go for the long bomb.
So, looking over here on the Undead side, every KO came back. They're actually able to field a full 11-man team, and all the work that the Dwarves put in practically undone. The Mummy is still off the field. Some benefit to be gained there, but there's no player advantage.
No, but he put that ball in a perfect spot to work for him for those Dwarves, just right behind that front line.
That was on purpose.
We'll say it was on purpose.
There you go. And a dwarf goes down. No apothecary used.
No, it's that strength 5 mummy coming out to play, just getting that advantage out there.
Blow. Mighty blow is what punctured the armor, so it's huge. There's a bit of a dispute on how blitzers and brawlers of any kind should be leveled. Safe route is to get blocked so that you can put more people down and not take as many hits, but the other route is to get that mighty blow at level 2. No question for the dwarfs. They've got tackle and block already, so mighty blow is an easy level 2, but for a lot of others like black orcs and chaos warriors, some say that mighty blow needs to be that level 2, and you'll see these mummies, he mighty blow and just putting people down.
Yeah, that's one of the real problems I have with my Amazons, getting my blitzers to level 2. I need to make sure that I'm putting them on guard, though, because I don't really have that big strength beat-up guy.
Team of 3, guard is what holds you together. And you'll see that with these dwarves also. Like, there's a good chance he may get some sprinkling of tactics in there. Expect a full level 2 of mighty blow and a full level 3 of guard, and then you're looking at like strength 6 and 7 hits of block, tackle, mighty blow, and he'll just like he's doing here. He's setting up a corral to keep all the undead inside. Well, as that tightens more and more, it becomes less likely because he's going to be in those tackle zones while he's throwing tackles. When that tightens and he's got a full team of guard, you just lay down and hope that he picks up the ball and walks off.
That guard giving a +1 even when you're engaged is super nasty, especially when you've already got the strength and mighty blow and the block and the tackle that you don't have to spend any levels on. All you need to get is that 6 SVP, and boom, there's your mighty blow, there's your guard.
So we're trying to engage on the down dwarf, make sure there's no movement there. Basically, the opening that was created, he's just putting bodies in to make sure that it stays open. He doesn't want it to reconstrict on him. And you'll hear Complacent Badger bring it up every once in a while about me. I despise go forwards. I won't do it. I can't stand it. Even though it's a 2+, it feels like a 5+ to me.
No, there's a lot of times where I think, oh, I've got an easy go for it. It's 2+, and I roll a 1. I have to use a reroll on it, and boom, there's another 1 in a row, and it's just the odds of the dice.
So he had to use his team reroll, tried to pick up the ball, didn't have the reroll for the pickup, turnover. Granted, the go for it would have been a turnover if he didn't reroll it, but he could have just chose not to. Thick Skull keeping players on the field, so that's going to help this drive. A KO would have hurt, but from the perspective of the Dwarves here, punched again. Might end up getting that injury after all.
The big dodge from the dwarf to get in there on the tackle zone of the ball, real good strategy, especially when you got two ghouls around it.
Badgers playing a better game than two. Not really being as bloodthirsty. Definitely still throwing out those punches, but he's still keeping a formidable line out. Not really committing to that tightening noose. Um, it's a shame that he's got nothing to show for it because that first half was amazing for him.
He really did bring himself a player advantage, but it looks like the Undead are coming back swinging just as hard this time.
Can
Choosing
do
not
though.
to go for rerolls on 3 of those catches.
The bouncing catches don't have the +1 of a direct pass or a pickup, so I tend to not want to do it either. It's not worth um odds, and he's only got one left. With so many turns left, you have no idea what he's going to need it for. Receiver with block using that tackle to get the hit. Um, oh, I take that back. He's got the stun. So that gives him some breathing room, a little two-turn of not having to worry about that. Now he can really press in and be aggressive. Let's see if he can wrangle this ball. Currently in the grasp of, what is that, 5 undead players? 4 undead players and a white that can move to assist. This ball is currently very much an undead ball.
That ball's an undead ball, but their downfield option is being shut down right now, and that is a super smart play by Badger.
Right here, doing the blitz follow up into an assist. Absolutely love it.
It's a super smart strategy, getting in there, getting your players over there, getting to move where you need to be, but also delivering the pain.
And it's something that I harp on when I'm trying to train. Oh man, that dodge into a KO is gonna hurt. When I'm trying to assist other coaches, have an objective, especially for those one-off actions like a blitz, like a pass, like a handoff. You only get one a turn, so look at it and be like, where can this blitz be used, and where can the follow-up of my turn? And this white opening him up and then covering these two dwarves so they can't follow up. Great play.
Yeah,
Die
moving
into
the
a ball
action down
drop.
to the receiver though. I mean, he left. He didn't give a good cage for his ball carrier, which kind of really sets him up in a bad spot and gives him that option to go for that one die with the two. But the idea that he left most of the dwarves engaged from that center line was a really good play. It was a good strategy, maybe not in practice, but in theory, it was a good strategy.
A little bit of desperation, as you said, it didn't have that cage, and it's punishing. A lot of flack for that, especially from complacent Badger, is I'll leave my ball carrier exposed with a bit more of a zone defense around him, and I've been punished for it. And you saw Gympy just got punished for it as well.
Going for that uphill two die against that mummy and getting a double defender down is a really really good roll for him. Unfortunately, didn't get the penetration, but at least he got the chance.
With his stats and everything, again, not being afraid to do that. Again, so using that and get some pressure. Immediately after a ghoul just dodged into a KO, he's got that ghoul dropping on a go for it into a KO. This again is starting to spiral and really snowball against Gympy. I can really see complacent Badger punishing him for these turnovers.
And just as you said before, those go for it's feel like a 5+. They might be a 2+, but they feel like a 5+.
Don't they? I hate it.
They just don't go away, and we've seen them fail a couple of them in a row. It's not even it's to the point of ridiculous because you think you've got a 1/3 chance of failing, but I mean there it is right in the face, 2 of them in a row, and one of them just straight up KO took your goal right out of the game.
Another ghoul KO. He's oh no. Here in a second. He got a ghoul into a death.
Oh,
There's no regen on a ghoul, and there's no apothecaries on an undead team. So that is a gone ghoul. All 4 ghouls off the field. One is whites at this moment. One is stunned. The other's on his back with 2 dwarves. This looks like a guaranteed dwarf touchdown.
yeah, you've got that extra turn to move down that right side that nobody's going to be able to catch you because those zombies just don't move fast enough and they can't dodge out of those tackle boxes, especially with tackle on the dwarves.
You've got the speed of the skeletons that you can hope for a little bit, but again, they are agility 2 as well. Those dodges are not comfortable. And when you're failing 2 pluses, that 4 plus looks impossible.
He just pulled that white right out of there and just took that dodge risk because he needs to get a safety down the field.
And he's going to get caged up again. It's going to be a difficult dodge out. And you'll see Complacent Badger not tagging from the back, but tagging from the side. It's going to allow him to tag from the other side and cause that with a negative modifier.
Instead of operating under what we would call a standard cage, it looks more like Complacent Badger is just putting the entire undead team inside of a cage and running the ball around it.
Yep. That's a bit more the unorthodox that I was talking about. A zone, a little bit of a enemy cage, and just allowing the ball carrier to do what he does. I've never been a fan of the conventional cage, and I do take a lot of flack for it.
Now the conventional cage is a little stiff and it's a little hard to move, but in these early levels, when you've got such an advantage to having your tackle and your block on your starting players, you can put your opponent into a cage instead of building a cage around your ball carrier, and it's much more the advantage for you because it gives you a lot more freedom of movement and you don't have to open up holes.
You don't commit 5 people to the movement of the ball. Um, So not getting the dodge that he needed to get around and give the 1 die on the ball carrier. Both whites on the ground. Now it's time for Complacent to just throw hits and keep looking for those injuries. He's got 2 so far. This is going to be his most experience gained game. At 3 for a touchdown and 4 from injuries.
Saving those rerolls till the end so you can not get that double attacker down and still put that player down.
Really from not throwing too many dice. He was lucky enough to have the ball land on him to where he didn't have to pick it up because that would have burned a reroll or 2 and possibly some turnovers. After that, no ball exchanges, no dodges. His tackle attempts are very safe. Those rerolls until he gets a bad attacker down.
No, Badger, and we all know Badger does not like throwing dice unless it's strongly already in his advantage. He's always complained about his luck with dice, and it's always been bad.
Always true. You go back and watch some of these, and you're like, it's for him to be so of dice in general. So Gympy getting those crazy dodge rolls for ball carrier, not getting the strip that he needed, and ultimately the Dwarves being able to pull out that touchdown. First touchdown of the season. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was a good touchdown for him, and it happened on turn 16, just where he needed to, with no response available.
From these Dwarves is a touchdown on turn 8 and turn 16. He's going to use the full drive necessity because he is a movement 4, but also he doesn't want any chance of a retaliation.
No, and he wants to make sure he keeps full control of the field at all times.
Honestly, I'd be surprised to see anything more than a 2-1 against him. Or for him. I think I had a 3-0 in the first one, but one of those was kind of some desperate passes and some dice rules that really made that happen as opposed to actual like play style.
starting off on this match results statistic page with the 15 armor breaks for the Dwarves versus the 2 armor breaks for Left 4 Dead, and they also suffered the death.
Breaks for that Gympy got against the Bruisers, though, he did get an injury. So that was a huge step in the right direction, but is not something that you're going to be getting through. So the 2 armor breaks, he was more dodging away as opposed to trying to commit to hits. I'm really not surprised that that isn't higher. It needs to be a low number like that because this was not the Undead's game.
No, the dice were really not going in their favor. It didn't feel like when we were watching, especially when it came down to doing those dodge rolls and those go for it's.
In a minute. The 15 armor breaks on the Bruisers, that seems about average. He's been, I want to say 14 to 20 is the wheelhouse he's been in. There was a lot more impact. Felt like a lot more KOs. He, of course, got the injuries we were talking about, so we're going to see that here in a bit. Switching over to the dice rolls, go ahead and give me a heads up when you see it. It's a dead space now that I think about it.
There you go.
So the Bruisers, failed catches, agility 2, not surprising. 80% on the going for it. Yep, that's going to happen. And then here's the 2 armor breaks that you were talking about here. 88% success on his armor. It's a 10 plus to break it. That's statistical. He's got 18 hits against him, and that's about all you're looking. Throwing hits against these Dwarves just does not make results. At that point, you're looking at a push is a success. Split these guys and run from them.
Yeah, the only problem with trying to run from them, though, is they do have that tackle still right off the rip. And I mean, looking at his dice rolls with 14 threes, that seems about average for Complacent Badger.
Some of those 3s with 5s, you'd have an even spread. This looks good down here. Look at Left 4 Dead. I can already tell looking at this one, it is not pretty. Yet.
No, looking at that, I mean, a 33 armor success with a 17 failure rate, 10 failed dodges of 17.
In total. He's 53 and was throwing a lot of crazy ones, so that's not really too surprising. But he did have some critical no penalty dodges with the ghouls that were failing. That was just shame seeing some of those. These injuries up here, that stat is way too low. Has some armor 7, but for the most part he's 8s, and he needs to be able to the armor be able to hold a bit more. And then the injury rolls were just, again, same thing, just too much in the dwarf favor there. 63% on a 10 plus is just needs to be higher for getting the 9 or less, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and looking at the dice amounts that he rolled down there, 31, 37, 30, 30, 33, and 32. He threw a ton of dice this game, and it was a little ridiculous.
All in response. Again, injuries and armors. So the hits that he's taking, he's rolling his own armor. When it penetrates, he's rolling his own injury. So you've got 19 injury, what is that, 40, 50 armor. So about 70. That's 140 dice that he rolled that he honestly did not want to roll. He was forced to roll them, and just not a good situation to be in.
No, he really found himself in a lot of troubled spots, but those dwarves are a troubling team. Those tackle zones, they feel a lot bigger when there's a dwarf in the center of it.
So as far as the gameplay, I said it in the middle of the game. That was one of Complacent Badger's best games that I've seen. Really taking advantage of the sideline, getting the player advantage early, keeping that ball movement going. not just the center, but a full line that only kept about 2 spaces in the sidelines to go around. Excuse me. Um, Huge presence and just very well played. Again, the game not really wanting to stay in complacent Badgers' favor. Uh, all of the KOs coming back in one fell swoop. It undid all of his work, but he on and just did it again the second round, getting that player advantage again and ultimately getting that touchdown. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, and watching complacent Badgers dwarves come out, and it was so methodical, just a methodical dice throwing beat down. Whenever he threw his block dice, he was throwing them at advantage, or he barely wanted to throw it at all. And it really just shows how much he really does know about being a coach in this league.
Just how familiar he is with these 12 Longbeards. I mean, I've seen him now. This might be the third iteration of this team, and he loves it. And it's funny. It's fun to watch, and it's just a lot of fun. Um, and then so Gympy here, he kind of had the same situation as last time, the Orcs. So he stepped toe to toe against the Orcs, immediately got punished for it, and then fell back into a bit more of a zone defense. Kind of the same thing happened here. He thought he was going to go toe to toe with the Dwarves, and in trying to recover from that miscalculation, it just snowballed into more and more of a player advantage. Um, and then it's difficult to run, as Badger calls it, the elf defense, that one space zone. It's difficult to run that dodges, simple dodge outs that are just dropping on your face, and it's frustrating. And I watching that, I can definitely see if I was Gimpy, I would have been very frustrated.
Yeah, not being able to get those dodges, not being able to find that hole in that defense, especially when you're just not getting the put downs you need to get, but you're trying to play just the right way, and sometimes the dice just don't agree.
Anything left to say? You got any last words for us?
No, I thought it was a good game. I thought both teams put up a good effort for it. We saw Gimpy come out and try to go toe to toe, and then we saw him drop back a little bit in the second half, which he's done a couple times now. And I mean, the dice just weren't in his favor this time, but next week we'll see what happens.
As well. See you guys.